let's go ahead and formally get started. So first, thanks everybody for being here. Fun technical glitch. Mr. Kearney, our head of high school, is going to be joining me live here in a moment because he is having all kinds of Zoom malfunctions. Thankfully, he lives behind me. So he is literally, that poor man is running through the snow right now to come over, and he is literally going to join me in my office in just a second. And I'll get him started. Aaron just said I have a major echo on my audio. I apologize. Let me see if I can do anything about that. I just changed my audio, so Aaron, thank you for saying that. I hope that's better. Ariel, does my audio seem okay to you?
Sounds great. Yeah.
Sorry, everybody. So again, I'm so glad to have you. In just a minute, Mr. Kearney's going to join, and I'm going to largely turn this over to him and Ariel and Jeff Fossey, so they can talk to you about, in more detail, about all the exciting things that we have planned for our senior class for next year. And I have to tell y'all, we've been working on this for a really long time. Lots of conversations, lots of discussion. And in doing so, we've been going through, like, and obviously looking at every single student, trying to make a plan and go through all these things. And I know you feel this much more than I, but I can't believe your kids are seniors or about to be seniors, because they were all seventh graders, eighth graders when I first arrived at Landmark. And having two EMS students that were coming in at the same time, I know your kids so well because they were so kind to my kids and so kind to me. So it's crazy to me that we're now sitting here talking about their senior experience. With that said, too, I have to tell you, I got back last night from the senior trip with our current seniors. Come on in, Mr. Kearney. So I was in Florida on the senior trip at Disney World, and I got back last night. Our seniors are arriving right now. They're driving back from the airport right now. So in just a year from now, right? It's not going to take that long. You're going to find yourself thinking about all of those things. So, Mr. Kearney, I'm going to give you my chair in just a
Yeah, that's
second.
good. I'm good.
And we will officially get started. Ariel is going to be leading us. She's got the slide, so she can play Vanna for us. And I'm going to tilt this over so that there's Mr. Kearney.
Good
So,
evening.
all right, Mr. Kearney,
Welcome. Sorry about that.
an adventure already.
Yeah, so we kicked it off with the kids today. I think we had almost all kids there. And I don't know how many of you have heard from them yet, but it was a good discussion. I've had several follow-up discussions. And go ahead, Ariel. We're starting to set the tone for what we think will be a very exciting year, and we trying to get a little excitement going as they kind of think about their own year ahead, and that they'll be on the Disney trip or coming back from a Florida trip a year from now if the calendar holds. Graduation's already set, all kinds of things to go through, and that we have some work to do. We have some real work to do and some exciting work to do, and we wanted to start to um, go through that today, talk about the tutorial pathways, and had a good discussion on that. And so, Ariel, you want to jump one more?
Sure thing.
Yeah, you can just, I mean, we can just keep going. So we started talking to them, and we've been thinking very hard here about what are the skills we need to make sure that they're really comfortable with when they leave here. And we've been looking a lot, talking a lot to our recent alumni, to looking at research from the experience of young college students around the country. Um, and there are a bunch of these things. And one of the questions we get and one of the comments we get all the time is, I was really well supported in my small class, but then I stepped into that freshman seminar of 500 students. How do we be more intentional about preparing them for that? Go ahead, Ariel. And you can jump in on some of these too.
Sure.
And in a similar thing, once again, 6 to 8 kids in a classroom is one thing. Finding the appropriate voice with 15, 20, 25 kids in a real college seminar is a very different thing. How do I participate? How do I commit? How do I make space for my comments? How do I be a great listener and participant as well? And we want to be more intentional of role playing that and pushing that, helping them push into that space.
Mhm.
And I want to be cautious here to clarify that whether a student's thinking about going to a 4-year school, a 2-year school, into the service, going to work in business. These skills are no less important. You know,
Mhm.
they could be going into work for a major retailer and they're going to be in large training sessions, needing to navigate assistance, needing to understand how to participate in work groups and the like.
Mhm.
Um, Advocating for themselves is something we work on, but we think we can do an even better job at. It's been easy to access resources here. They're going to have to, and resources often even find them. You know, their teachers find them and provide that hint or their push. Um, uh, they're going to need to. We're going to want them geared up to go looking for those and to take advantage of office hours and things like that.
Mhm.
And technology. We can't underestimate how much the landscape has changed in just, what are we, we're 3 years, 3.5 years from the introduction of ChatGPT, 3.0 or 3.5, I guess it was. It really changed the landscape for college students. Um, and the research is out there, very close to 100% of students report using AI in their studies all the time. The most successful students are flexible, adaptive technology users. And we also hope that it'll be constructive and ethical too. And so we want to focus on that with them as well and infuse more of that into their senior year experience. This is another one, and we even got some interesting questions today, which we'll get to when we talked about small group work. But is this thing is I'm pretty comfortable working alone. I think many of us are more comfortable working alone, but we don't always have the luxury of that in the workplace. We need those who can collaborate well, can participate in study groups and things like that are going to be more successful. The
Mhm.
research on study groups is pretty interesting too. And then it's funny. I've been spending some time with our seniors, and you just had a chance to too. And it's funny to listen to the Endicott kids and oh, we're writing so much, Mr. Curry. Um, and this idea that they're going to be cranking out papers, all the time, and to be more comfortable and not to get their backs up when all of a sudden they're writing 4 and 5 pages papers every week. So we want to continue to push that. It's a lot of work. So we've just talked about six skills. I don't know if one of you guys wants to review them.
I think my overview would be a lot of these things are skills or experiences, competencies that we have been working towards or acknowledging or practicing through our programming and certainly through senior coursework. But it really feels like our kids need, like in that landmark model, that like explicit indication of we are working on these things because we know that it's coming up next. And so again, this has been part of what we've done, but trying to coordinate the experience so that it's a little bit more tangible, a little bit more realistic, and a little bit more like durable, so that the experience that they have with us carries with them and moves forward with them. So it's learning from decades of work that we've done of getting kids ready and sending them into college, but recognizing the college industry itself, the work industry itself is shifting and demanding different things from our kids, which Josh has spoken to many, many times. And wanting to make sure our classrooms, that you can see that in our classrooms, that it's not just the adults talking about it, but the kids' experience really connects to it. So I think that's kind of one of the driving purposes behind framing this for you all, framing it for your students today, of like our commitment to making sure that our program is really meeting your kids where they're at as learners, but also where they're at as emerging adults in a world that's very different. Jeff Fosse and I started at Landmark in 2004. The kids we graduated our first class, we're going into a different world than the kids that are about to graduate this year, and certainly your children graduating at the end of next year.
And I would completely agree with everything Ariel said. And I would add as well that I think to Ariel's point, these are all skills we've been working on. We continue to work on. None of this is new. And when we talk to alumni, that's something we spend a lot of time, especially the last 2 or 3 years, really trying to understand from our recent alum what's your experience when you leave here. And for many of them, it's not a lack of ability, but it is a matter of intimidation, right?
Mm.
I talked about this. I was told how to do it, but then I got into a situation where, it was very real, right? So what we're trying to do as part of this is really just uh, make that transition, right, from the safety, from the security, from all that we can do at Landmark, and then help them start to understand a little bit more. These are transferable. You can do this in a new space, in a new way. The expectations haven't changed, the tools haven't changed. We just want to make sure that we're giving them practice in applying it in the context that's going to be expected of them when they leave here. The only other thing I would add is to, John's point about AI. It's a reality, right? How do we navigate this? How do we make sure they understand it ethically? How do we make sure they're asking the right questions of their professors so they do work ethically? Because one teacher is going to have a different expectation than the next. We hear that a lot. So we want to make sure they know that. And in addition, we also really want to talk about assistive technology. When we talk to our alum, I want to say 100% say, I use assistive technology in my college coursework or in my career. And a significant portion said that's something I kind of had to learn on my own post Landmark. And that's not what we want to be the case. We don't want something that 100% of our kids are using that is clearly a vital tool for them. We want to make sure that we're introducing that, again, in the context that they're going to face with the support that we can offer so that when they leave us, it's not another skill they have to add. It's something already embedded in their experience and in their understanding.
Yeah, for sure.
So we're looking at a bunch of different pieces, as these guys have said. They're all things that are evolutions, the next generation of stuff we've already been doing. And the cornerstone has always been the tutorial and what we're calling now tutorial pathways, which comes from the recognition and lots of research that suggests that by the time that a student has been receiving support for 3, 4, 5, 6 years, it doesn't always mean that one-on-one is by the best way at all for them to be proceeding at that point. And for a number of years, we've had students in the prep program who have moved beyond that. But what the work with our researchers, and some of you were able to join last week on that, has shown is that many more of our students would actually benefit from kind of leaving the cocoon of the one-on-one, and that there are actually gains to be had in reading comprehension in other areas by doing it with a peer or two and an instructor rather than just one-on-one. I don't know if either of you want to
Yeah,
comment on that.
and I would just add to that too. Our goal, and you'll see, we call them studio, workshop, and lab. In no way, shape, or form is it meant, nor is it in reality hierarchical, right? Where this is good and that is bad, that's achievement, that's not. It is more an exercise where we sat down and looked at every single student and said, okay, based on what we know about them, based on the scores that they're producing, what do we think is going to be the best avenue for their next, what we refer to as productive struggle, right? We want it to be hard. We don't want it to be impossible, right? So what do we think for each individual child makes the most sense for them? And that's how we worked with our internal researchers and our external researchers to really try to make an individual recommendation for each of them about what do we think is going to be the best pathway for them to come closer to independence, to grow in their literacy skills, and for many of them to apply literacy skills in context because they've reached that point, right? They have developed the underlying and fundamental skills that they need, and now we want to give them more opportunities for application, again, in a setting that's a little bit more reflective of what will be expected of them after they leave us. Ariel, I'm sure, please add, correct.
No, I think that's great. When we get into the versions of tutorial, we can talk about it more, but that framework is really important.
We've already hinted, we're going to be rethinking. We have a number of pretty interesting senior course offerings now that range from, there's a leadership group, there's debate groups, there is a senior seminar, and there's the student advocacy, each of which have, wonderful elements to them. But we want to step back and say, how do we create what we're right now calling the Senior Seminar Series, which would be a series of lectures and seminars over the course of the year, theme-based. But it wouldn't just be the students participating in lectures. but it would be the intentionally coaching of, okay, let's review what you got out of that and what are strategies to do better in a lecture setting. Um, and it would be and it would be supported with a small work group of just like the size of our classes between every seminar or lecture, so that there could be that deconstruction of how to go. What do I need to do better next time I'm in that setting? How do I prepare myself for the next seminar or for the next lecture that's coming at me? And we'll talk more about that in April, but we think that this is going to be a really exciting opportunity for most, if not all, the seniors to have a shared experience and a series of lectures and seminars throughout the year that would be one of their core courses. And I think many, if not most of you, are already engaged in the college and career counseling process. If you haven't and you feel like you've been overlooked, please get to me. But I know that the college counseling team has been reaching out regularly, and we'll have a lot more of that as we go through the spring as well. Your students are involved in it almost every week, if not every week right now. Jeff, are you live?
I
Do you want to
am.
jump in and talk a
Sure.
little bit about some of the immersive learning opportunities? And
Yeah, I think I think our flagship program at the moment that our current seniors are embarking on is really our capstone program. So I'll try to avoid going too far in depth because I could say an awful lot about our capstone program. But ultimately, it's a self-driven project in which our seniors are identifying areas of interest, and they are pursuing internships or independent projects or service learning opportunities for the final 3 weeks of their high school career here at Landmark. So, supported through senior seminar, driven by the students themselves, and ultimately a chance to get out of the classroom for the last 3 weeks of their senior year before coming back for a pretty dynamic and special senior week and graduation. So, as it stands right now, we have 60 seniors in our current class of 2026. 56 of them have found placement, and I think that just exemplifies that most are doing this on their own, with the support of our teachers, advisory leaders, seminar teachers, guidance counselors, myself, and then 56 out of 60 is a great number right now, and I think those four represent how we'll individualize that support moving forward. So, same systems that have always existed at Landmark. A little bit more independence or a lot more independence built into this as they exit senior year, but then as they struggle or need more support, we're right there to pick them up along the way.
And then there's also dual enrollment through Endicott, lots of elective, and also opportunities for individual pursuits. And we'll talk about that later in March. And examples of those is we have a couple kids doing internships this year for the full year, and other opportunities for independent projects, initiatives they want to get behind themselves. And we really encourage that and will help support that. And then Jeff will also be leading in his new role as dean, a further evolve. This year was the first year of the new advisory program, and it's gone well, and we have lots of ideas on how to make it even better, and specifically a section of it, a level of it, developed specifically for seniors. And so that'll be coming along as well. Ariel, you want to jump in on this one?
Sure. So, and we shared this with your students today, so they've seen it as well. And you should either have already received or will be receiving an email to you and your child that shares a recommendation that we've made. And I can speak to a little bit of how we got there, but the options that we have for tutorial next year, which is really a continuation of our effort to individualize for each student and think about what's the right environment, what's the right structure for this last year of tutorial for your students, and as kind of like an illustration of what they've been working towards, whether next year will be their second year with us or their 8th year with us or whatever it is for your child and your family. So the options that we've drawn up, and Josh referenced the names. The studio tutorial is one teacher, one student. So that's kind of the traditional version of tutorial that we've thought of and that we've used. The difference for senior tutorial, which currently exists as well, is that tutor is really working with the kid both on what they need support on now, and thinking about how it's going to apply into whatever their next environment is. And that will continue. But that studio tutorial is really dedicated to a focus on continued development of or developing independence in foundational literacy and core skills. Some students in a studio tutorial are relatively new to us. They might have just started this year. Other students have been with us for a few years, and based on their growth and path, this is the right fit for them for senior year. So it's really reflective of each individual student. The other option is a workshop tutorial, and John kind of referenced this. This is students where we're working on that comprehension, the connection, the scaffolding of meaning, and that really benefits having another kid or maybe two in the classroom, so that the discussion is a little bit more peer driven and fostered among the two students, and a little bit less of one teacher to one student. And those pairings, whether it's two students or three students, are closely aligned and matched based on various factors of their demonstrated skills, test scores, years at Landmark, overall profile. So we're going to have two students in the room that are both working on the same kind of complementary skills. It's not just two kids who happen to be available. It's two very intentionally chosen and paired students. And then we have the lab tutorial. And this is really students who need that maintenance of literacy skills and are ready to or needing to apply it in new contexts, develop that independence, develop that automaticity, and also start working on writing and the expression of those ideas. Writing will exist in any tutorial, all three of these versions. Study skills exists in all three of these versions. Vocabulary instruction, oral expression, all of those threads pull through each of these tutorials. It's really about the balance and the focus and the right environment for your kid to be in while they're working on these skills with us for one last year. These tutorials, regardless of what kind we're recommending, will be in their student schedule exactly the same way tutorial is now. It's one of their 8 classes. We're still going to keep this blue and gold day schedule for next year, so it will meet every other day. John referenced the senior seminar work that we're going to do. There's some really incredible opportunities for us to make senior seminar a more dynamic and in some cases more challenging course and leverage the tutorial experience to support it in a really intentional way. So it's not homework help. It is discussion prep. And let's review this reading together, because when we go to seminar tomorrow, your teacher is going to expect you to have something to say. What stood out to you? And you need to have an answer to that. And that's what these tutorials can start to support within the skill framing that each student needs. And then one last thing, and I'll stop if Josh and John, you want to add anything. The process of getting to these recommendations really started in November or December, when we started thinking about what are the key elements for us that we want students to get out of or have access in tutorial. We've been meeting with outside researchers. Our Department of Progress and Performance team pulled together an incredible data set to help us see globally and individually students' skill growth across multiple domains of language. Then we looked at years at Landmark, overall experience, profile and program, post-high school planning, what we know about them personally and individually, and really came up with what I think are very thoughtful and deeply individual recommendations for each kid's schedule. But that's a recommendation for you and your child to now reflect on and discuss and engage with us in conversation on. So it's really, we're hoping that this is an invitation to ask questions and see what you think and have plenty of more conversations to reflect on that recommendation, because that's what it is, and that's where we're at, of sharing what we think might be a great idea for your child for next year.
If I could just add to that, first off, the amount of data that Megan and her crew pulled together and that enabled all this was amazing. And one of the things I think that's an important factor, and we'll get into this in some of the questions that came up with the students today, is that many students' rate of acquisition, pace of acquisition vary. And some students are going to be faster at that, and some people are going to be doing that. So we're able to even look at that. And one important step first off, the data is amazing, but this goes way beyond data, because the final filter was Ariel and her team and the Beacons who oversee all the tutors and know all the kids, department heads, others providing input in, okay, so they recommend Josh for a 2-on-1. Sorry, Josh. But We actually think that given where his specific literacy skills are in decoding, he'd benefit for at least some more time on a one-on-one. Or on the other side, it's time for him, yes, the test scores may say that he should still be in that thing, but the way we see in that studio group, but the way that we see him grasping material and the attitude that he brings to it suggests no, he's really ready for a workshop tutorial. So in some respects, the first level was the data. The second level was our observations factored in there, the qualitative observations. And now we're getting to kind of the third and the fourth very important levels, which are your students and your chance to say, okay, this is the recommendation we received. These are the questions we have. And we'd like to either have more information or understand why we shouldn't be thinking about this or that as an alternative. And so we're still very much in a recommendation phase and far from a decision phase. The decision phase won't happen until after conferences in April, so about 7 weeks away.
Yeah, and that was and what John just says exactly what I was going to add. That again, recommendation, and there's plenty of time. This is not something that you received a letter today and we expect an answer or consent, before we leave for break. Lots of time, and if you want to have individual conversations, we would welcome that. Right? There's going to be opportunities to discuss more in groups and ask questions, and then we'd also welcome opportunities for you to sit down and ask individual questions about, okay, what about my particular child in this particular circumstance? We can talk through all of that. We will also, for those of you that receive public funding and have a relationship with your districts, we will also work with you and work with that district to make sure the district understands your choice, what you think is best for your child, and make sure that they understand how all that fits so that we can eliminate any friction or concern there. We're working very closely with them on that. So we do not anticipate that being an issue as well, because again, we want this to be a partnership that's driven by you. Again, we certainly make a recommendation based on all the layers that John just mentioned, but we want to, again, work with you and make sure that whatever it is that you think is best for your child as we prepare to officially launch them from Landmark, that we have all those things in place.
And as Josh was referencing, and I think you may have seen in letters, the first communications with the district start Wednesday, I think.
Yep. Yep.
And so that process, we're going to start briefing them on the systems and the recommendations this week. In case you hear from them, we'll keep you abreast of that as well. Also, going back to the original premise, your kids are getting ready for the workplace and college. I've had some great conversations with juniors who found me this afternoon. Please encourage them to bring their own questions to Ariel, to Chase Collins, who will be taking a big role in this, to myself. We love that opportunity, and it's just great to connect with them on those questions.
And speaking of questions, as we move forward, and Ariel, feel free to advance if that's the appropriate time. Please add your questions to the Q&A right now. I meant to say that at the beginning. If you have questions, please put them in. We'll save some time at the end, and we'll try to address as many of those as possible. So as we go through, feel free to put those questions in the Q&A.
Great.
I think we've pretty much touched on this.
I think so too.
And we're not going to get deep into this evening, and we've already talked about elements of this, but we're really looking at the senior seminar, and you can see it along that bottom strip, is that a week or a 2-week 5-class cycle might start with a lecture on a theme. And the first lectures might only be 15 to 20 minutes long as we practice them into as we work with them to see what it's like to be part of a big lecture with 40, 50, even 80 students. We're hoping to tack into some real lecture facilities around here so that they could have the experience of what it's like to be in a college lecture hall once a month, just to get that feel. Then they would come out of that, and that's that small study group that I was talking about. All 7 of the 8 or 8 of the, I guess will be 10 of the teachers that would be associated with the study groups would also be in the lecture. So they're observing the kids while they're in the lecture. Well, John, it's easy to see why you might not have missed that point. Why you might have missed that point because you were doodling at the time or asleep at the time. But providing feedback and coaching as to how do I be successful. And boy, would I have benefited from this. But how do I be successful when I walk into that first lecture, when I'm going into a Socratic seminar with a specific rubric that's going to that's going to represent how I'm assessed, and how do I get ready for that seminar? How do I structure the paper? So we think it's going to be very exciting. We're going to provide. We think we can provide some opportunity for the students to have some agency in some of the theme weeks as well. And so, okay, this is an area we're really interested in. Okay, let's see if we can get someone to come in specifically about neurodiversity, or what's happening in this area of technology or in careers. So there'll be exciting theme blocks. We'll have a lot more of that coming to you and the students in April before we get into full course selection. And I don't know that we need to get into a lot more tonight.
Yeah.
That's great.
Ariel and Jeff, we're both in the room as well. I don't know if you want to comment on any of these questions. But there were some good ones, a lot of repetitive themes. And, we talked a little bit about there's certainly that thing, well, it's pretty comfortable working by myself. And I think that is something we heard a bit about. But do you guys want to run with some of these?
Sure. I think the grouping and pairing for tutorial, as with any class, is really important to our students. It's important to us too. And I know it's important to you guys because you hear about it immediately when they're not sure about the matching or the pairing of their teachers or their classmates. Our same standards and expectations of ourselves as the adults making these scheduling choices carry forward next year. We want it to be the right people in the room, whether it's one teacher and one student, or two students, one teacher, or three students, one teacher. And we'll try and apply we will apply the same responsive, collaborative approach of if it's just not feeling right, or it doesn't feel like it's hitting the purpose that the student was expecting, or that you as family members were expecting, that's absolutely conversations that we want to have throughout the year. Our hope is that, like in our current scheduling process, we generally get it right. And when it's not the right fit, we're usually able to make a switch or a change or adjust and give feedback pretty quickly. So the same thing would apply here. But kids, especially those that have been at Landmark for a while, have really strong associations with what tutorial means and how it feels. And this is an adjustment to that environment. So we know that some of that anxiety is going to come out in where do I have choice and agency and control, and where am I just kind of like relying on the adults to do things? So all of those questions were expected and good ones for them to understand their role as students, and the same would apply for you all as family members. So that for me, that kind of addresses questions 1, 2, and 3 of like, where do I get to make choices? Number 4 is a great question, because ideally there shouldn't be a grouping where somebody's skills are dramatically higher or different than yours. The purpose of these groupings is that consistency of profile, especially in the workshop tutorials that are 2 or 3 students. Those should really be dialed in. The kids might be interested to know who else has a learning profile or a skill set like theirs, because it's not always matched with how they present in the cafeteria or in the dorm. But that will be done really thoughtfully. In the lab, there might be a little bit more spread of skill, but we're really granular. There's like 6 or 7 tests that we're using to identify skill sets and areas of growth, and we're really matching like number to number. And that's information that we can share in some ways with families and with students too, and certainly speak to the process that we went through. Same kind of answer to number 5. If we're halfway through the trimester and it's really not working, I would hope that starts with a series of conversations. Doesn't mean it needs to take weeks, but over the course of a couple of days, let's figure out what's making it not feel right and figure out what the right next step would be.
And can I just jump on one thing on those earlier questions? I think we're going to, I'd much rather them learn how to navigate uncomfortable new teacher matches and uncomfortable new student matches here at Landmark than when they're at 10,000 student U.
Mhm.
And they don't have us to fall back on. So we will try, just like we would in any class here or in a dorm room pairing or anything else, try to help them learn how to navigate that.
Mhm.
And so we may not just move right off it. and the kids were brazen. They were wonderfully brazen today and asking whether they could choose their own partners and stuff and their own teachers. Um, Ariel also touched on the tutors, and I'm delighted to say that we have some of our most seasoned and experienced tutors, many who are working with some of our juniors now, who are excited to be part of this new level of tutorial pathway. So that's kind of cool too.
Definitely is.
I would echo one thing within what's been said here. I teach a class of 12 seniors. It's a co-taught math class called Integrated Math, and we do 4 or 5 projects throughout the year. And without fail, students are dying to work with their best friend on the first group project in that class. And our caveat is always that you can pick your partner for the first project, but that we'll pick for the remainder of the year. And I would say, at a very high percentage here, the projects that come forward when we choose the partners, when they're no longer given that option, end up being more powerful, often contain better research. They are treated more seriously in terms of when the presentation comes to be, that they're better rehearsed. And I think that unfamiliarity with their partner within that project or partners within that project ends up being really productive in the end by taking them out of their comfort zone and perhaps even subconsciously just triggers them to be more focused and work a little bit harder towards completion.
I think that's great. I see that in my sophomore class too. The class is better when I assign seats sometimes. Um, So, some students ask genuinely in a very appropriate way, are we the guinea pigs for this? And I can understand that question because it's a change and it's a change during their last year. And I think your students, depending on how long they've been at the high school, have been anticipating senior year for a very long time, and wanting to kind of know what to expect. And we wanted to be clear with them and certainly clear with you all as family members and huge stakeholders in their experience. We're not experimenting with unknown ends that we're trying to reach. We're looking at this as an opportunity to really better and differently individualize for your students and be really deeply thoughtful about what that senior tutorial experience could be to launch them into what comes next. And my own anecdotal experience, I've tutored seniors many years. There's one student I had for 3 years in a row, and I had him senior year. I was thrilled to get to spend his senior year with him. I know that I did not push his skills the way I would have had I been new to working with him or had we been in a different environment where I was expecting him to apply and go beyond. Some of that is my own, weakness as a tutor and things that I should have done differently, but I think it's a symptom of we really care for your kids and we really love working with them. And sometimes we need a structural shift to find a new way to engage with them and help them grow and reach that productive struggle because we're showing them that we see them as capable and deserving of really high expectations. And I think that's really the goal here is to not miss an opportunity to prepare them for what's coming next by considering tutorial as an environment that has some flexibility and can adapt to kids at different points in their journey. And I feel really confident in what we've learned and gained from research and other school settings. John can speak to his own school settings where schools have approached tutorial in lots of different ways while still remaining true to being landmark school and knowing what we can and should and always will aim to deliver. And this is another evolution of that promise.
And I totally agree, Earl. And I would just add too, I want next year to be the most amazing senior year experience that anyone in Landmark has ever had. And I want it to be individualized and appropriately hard. Because if your senior year is hard in an appropriate, challenging way, it makes freshman year that much easier. So the goal is not to have an easy senior year because that means you're likely to have a much harder freshman year. What we want to do is have that appropriate amount of productive struggle that we've individualized for them and what we know is going to push their boundaries because we think that's what's going to make freshman year that much easier.
Yep.
We are one of the few schools, dyslexia focused schools, that actually still offer individualized tutorial.
At least in a permanent setting, yes.
Yeah.
This idea that, and you guys have heard me say this a lot before. I don't think for any student your first day should look like your last day, right? Because that's the whole idea, right? You're progressing. Last day should look different than your first day, and that's so much what this is all about.
Both of my last two schools had individual small group or super small group and then small group tutorials very much in this model.
And I must say the last question is my favorite. And of what if I refuse to use AI? And actually, and I wasn't even there this afternoon, but it actually kind of gives me some hope for the future. Because as much as I am pro AI, I think we need a good dose of skepticism about what this all means. Again, I wasn't there, so I'd love Ariel and Jeff. How did you handle that one? What'd you say?
We said that's fine. We said we want you to know what's out there and what the tools are and what they can and can't do and should and shouldn't do. But each of you is going to make your own decisions. And we do have a number of students who, for environmental or national security or personal privacy reasons, do not want to engage in AI. And that's absolutely a decision we'll honor. And I think it's our responsibility to make sure they understand what AI can do right now, what the possibilities are for future. And like Josh referenced with assistive technology, they need to know what tools work for them and which ones they like. And they need to be good at them while they're at Landmark so that when they get wherever they're going next, it's like their favorite pen's already in their bag. They already know what they like. They know how to use it. They can apply it in this new situation. And that's something that I don't think over the past couple of years we've been as like consistent or skilled at of getting kids to be prepared with assistive tech before they leave us. So it is totally okay if they don't ever want to use AI, but I need them to understand what it is and how it can function if they decide to change their mind, or maybe they never do. That's okay.
And we also need to make sure it informs their college selection, because there's some schools that they could put themselves at quite a disadvantage if they were not willing to use it, and they can avoid those schools. But to not know that going in, they could get there and find themselves at a disadvantage to 85% of their classmates.
Mhm.
An admirable position if they dogmatically or whatever, but it could cause some frustration.
I think what's next is some sample schedules, and I'm imagining we should leave some time for
And we should go with
questions.
questions.
Yeah.
Okay. So maybe I can just leave this one up as an illustration of this approach, these pathways in tutorial fit within the scheduling framework and the process that we currently have. So this is like a sample schedule for somebody that might be really interested in engineering. They're still going to have language arts. They're still going to have math. Many seniors will end up in calculus. They're likely going to have a history class. In this case, I just chose American legal system because it's a great one. Tutorial pathway for the student is a studio. So they're in that one-on-one environment. Science might be biochemistry of food, and they might also have pre-engineering because they're interested in that engineering pathway. They've got their senior seminar, and then maybe they're doing auto with some experience in welding. So the same like breadth of opportunities that the current senior class has and all the previous ones are a real key priority for us. And as we get into the spring, we've refined our scheduling approach and kind of how we're going to move through the different layers of information gathering. And our goal is to have thoughts on proposals for elements of your child's potential senior schedule ready for when you come either on campus or virtually to conference days in April, which is traditionally when we start talking about course selection. Happy to answer any questions ahead of time and start those conversations earlier, but the goal is really to get those proposed schedules pulled together around conference days. And then we actually schedule the seniors first. We schedule them end of May, early June before we leave for the summer. So there's still plenty of opportunities. We haven't really begun yet talking about all the options and opportunities for courses next year, in addition to whichever tutorial pathway your child ends up pursuing.
That's great. Thank you, Ariel. And so again, if you have any questions, put them in the Q&A. I think actually, Ariel, you just answered one of them because one of them was a question about, okay, is there a list of senior classes? Because my student was wondering about, how do they get to choose this and balancing out coursework and all those things. And I think you largely just addressed that by
Yeah, and
conferences and all those things.
Yep. And what we'll do is we have a course catalog that we're finalizing now, and we can put it on the website, and maybe we could work with our marketing team to have it sent directly to junior parents just so you can see it. But our goal is to get insight from current juniors, your children, through advisory on here's the options. Here are the courses that are really open to seniors in history, science, math, language arts, integrated literacy. There's kind of senior specific courses across the program, and get some interest from them and map that interest onto recommendations from department heads and academic leadership now based on the skills and the participation that we've seen from your students this year, engaging with Department of Progress and Performance to align with any conversation you had if you have an IEP and had a recent meeting, thinking about district expectations or your hopes and dreams, and then informing ourselves with the guidance process as well, because those conversations are crucial. And we want to be able to present to you guys and your students ideas and suggestions that reflect all of that, rather than like 14 different ideas and somehow needing to distill what the right thing is in there. So over the next we're going to go on March break, but when we come back from March break, you should start to get more information either from your student via conversations and advisory or from us via email as well, because there are a lot of really cool course options for our seniors.
There were also a couple of questions as how this relates to the prep program, right? Does this kind of eliminate prep program in senior year? Do prep program students get to do this? I'm happy to take a broad view and then certainly turn it over to John, Ariel, and Jeff for more specifics. But the prep program still very much exists. So if your child is enrolled in the prep program, they will continue to have that experience in their senior year. In fact, right now the majority, again, correct me if I'm wrong, John or Ariel and Jeff, the majority of our prep students actually already experience a lab-like tutorial. We don't call it tutorial in the traditional sense, but they're already participating in what's more of how we're structuring this kind of 3 to 4 group lab experience. So that will continue for them. And then, John and Ariel, am I right too that prep students, we also hope will take this lecture series as well?
I've been working very closely with Hillary. We've been working very closely with Hillary in developing and thinking about this course, the senior seminar course, with the expectation that all students will, or almost all seniors will take it. There will be, if we wind up with, what are we tracking towards right now, Ariel? 84 seniors, I think, is that right?
Something like that. Yep.
So there will be 8 or 9 sections, 10 or 11 sections by the time we're done of the small work groups. And so there may also be opportunities to group within segments, but we also think it's a great opportunity to bring the class together because prep students themselves talk about that they get to this trip that you guys were just on and they're like, wow, we haven't really been in classes with a lot of our other classmates. So we think that's a great opportunity, and Hillary and I and others have been very involved working on that together.
Yeah. I will say to add to that too, one of the experiences I've had, I've gotten to chaperone the senior trip a couple times now. I love now we do it in February versus April, so it just brings a little bit earlier into the school year. But one of the experiences that we hear a lot is, as seniors, my gosh, I met John and I've never really hung out with John because he was in prep, I was in that. He's a boarder, I'm not, da, da, da. And so we're really trying to create, and like we would like, eventually we want this to be the experience of all students, regardless of grade, but really create more of a sense of grade. Like as a senior, right? I have peers, regardless if I'm residential or boarding, whether I'm in that program or this program, that we're creating more of that kind of cross-pollination, if you will. So that, again, because I think that only benefits students. We had a really great question. I think Jeff started to put in an answer in the chat, but Jeff, I'm gonna, if you don't mind calling you out, because we had a great question about in the letter we mentioned Saturday school and Saturday school having a little bit more of an academic focus. And as we mentioned earlier, Jeff's taking on a new role next year to really kind of drive home across the high school experience, not just with seniors, but across the high school experience. A lot of what we're talking about today. Do you want to talk a little bit, Jeff, about early stages of vision for Saturday school?
Absolutely. So I started playing around in the chat, so I apologize if I deleted that. I'm not sure what button I hit, but ultimately, I think we understand the concern. The question in the chat was, will there be a more academic focus? Will there be increased rigor for Saturday school? And I think the answer for tonight is that we have heard that feedback and that this is a work in progress that we are striving for the year ahead. And ultimately, I think that may translate to more rigor and it may translate to something that's more cohesive from one Saturday school to the next, or that it's working towards a larger goal or a more immersive experience as it goes. So in the final 3 or 4 months here of school and in the summer ahead, this is one of my projects that John and I and others will be working on. But again, feedback heard, and I think there's more that we can do with Saturday schools, and that's a near-term goal for us in the year ahead.
Totally. I'm just going to flip to a different schedule to show. Oh, and I realize this is missing language arts. I apologize for the error. But there's a couple different ways that these schedules can look that might reflect some of the classes that students who are familiar with the prep program might expect to see, like senior research, economics, and psychology. So those are classes from the prep program that are still very much on offer to students who are full prep, or in many cases, students in Founders in Expressive Language in senior year might take some of those classes as their social sciences or study skills class.
If you have questions again, please feel free to put them in the chat. I don't know if you guys can see the Q&A, but we had a very kind comment about really kind of loving the idea of letting them cut their teeth on college while still at Landmark. And I completely agree. The thing I'm excited about so much of this, I love this idea of getting kids into more of a seminar style experience where you got to learn how to pay attention with all these people around you, right? One of the interesting things we've also heard from alumni is, I'm in my lecture, I'm taking notes. Everybody takes their notes on computer. Even if I feel more comfortable taking them on pad or paper, that's, often the way that I was used to it. Nobody in college is taking notes on pad or paper. So let's either give you the opportunity to feel comfortable doing it on a computer in a large setting, or you feel comfortable doing something different than everybody else in a large setting, right? Either or, I'm good with. But again, let's explore. Again, it's that intimidation factor. We want to lower the intimidation. You have the skill. How can we help you apply the skill in this context? And again, as John has mentioned, having all these supports in place and all these observations to help you get there. So in our last couple minutes, I'm just going to give everybody a minute to put in the chat. I want to thank John and Ariel, Jeff, and not on the call right now is, there's so many people that contribute to this, but Megan Siebens, who's the head of our Department of Student Progress and Performance. I can't tell you the amount of effort, time, thought. I genuinely know this senior class better than I've known any other class just because of all the thought that went into this. And we're so excited for that. And again, that's what we want at Landmark, right? We individualization is about individualization. And so this, I think, is just been such an inspiring experience of design for us. And we're so excited to provide it for your students. And then we're so excited for all the things that we're going to learn, right? About how do we, what does this mean for us? How do we make sure that we are providing this level of sophistication for every student every day? As the world evolves and all those things. A question on this particular slide, Ariel, we have senior research as a course. What is senior research is the question.
Great question. Senior research is the language arts class offered through the prep program. And it's a class that shockingly focuses on research, but the core of the course is building kids in skill and experience towards a pretty significant end of year opportunity to have completed 2 to 3 months of research on a topic of their choosing, writing a lengthy 15 to 20 page paper, and giving a very polished 20-minute presentation to an open audience of anyone from the Landmark School community. It's a very challenging course. I think a lot of seniors who have taken it find it incredibly helpful for college work that comes after. And it's really inspired all of our other senior language arts courses to create similar models of research-based independent work, presentation, or kind of novel contribution of their ideas. So all of our senior language arts classes have elements of the senior research class. This is just the one that's specific within the prep program. Hillary McKay Smith that John referenced has taught it. A lot of our really wonderful teachers have taught it. But that is the prep version of it. I think we'd love to have that opportunity of that formal presentation offered to all seniors in some way. And I think that's a real opportunity that we'd have within senior seminar without taking away from senior research, but just broadening that access. Because that's a pretty nerve-wracking experience to give a lengthy presentation based on work that you did yourself to a group of peers and teachers. And I think that'd be a great thing for more of our kids to get to experience. So that's what senior research is all about.
That's great.
It's a great class.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm hoping that questions will grow on you, that you'll walk away from this call, or you'll read the letter again tonight, or your student will get home and you'll be talking with them, and all of a sudden they'll have a bunch of questions. There are 2 opportunities this week. There's 8 o'clock on Thursday morning for a drop-in coffee conversation. If anybody wants to drop on, if anybody wants to come by campus then. So 8 o'clock Thursday morning, 1 o'clock on Friday afternoon, which was designed to coincide sort of with the pickup time. And more importantly, if those don't work, you can just email myself or Chase Collins, and we'll find time. I'm around all next week. If there's something that's gnawing and you say, I just don't get what they're talking about or whatever, don't let it sit there and bother you. Just drop me a note or give me a call, and we'll be happy to get back to you. Even though it's the first week of break, I'll be around next week.
So thank you all so much for your time. John, thank you for sprinting across literally snow and ice, and just seamlessly picking right back up in my very messy office with my dog barking in the background. So thank you. Jeff and Ariel, thank you so much for your time. And everyone that's joined us, thank you. Thank you for your trust. Thank you for your support. Thank you for your partnership, right? As we build what we hope again to be the most rewarding, exciting, appropriately challenging senior year experience for your child as we think about launching them into what comes next. Last thing I will say as we let you go, I know John has already shared this with many of you. My new favorite book for really any high school family, but certainly a junior rising senior, Dream School. Dream Schools by Jeff Seleggio. I should be able to say that better. Am I getting close enough? Really great book about thinking about college and or career and what comes out after high school, and really encouraging us all to think about beyond name brand, right? And really think about what do our kids want, what's most likely to get them there, and also for its value. So really great book. Really highly recommend it, especially where you're sitting today. So thanks all so much. Have a great break for those of you that get to observe some time with your kids. I hope you get to go somewhere warm. And no matter what, I hope you get some time to just be with your family and that your kids don't drive you too nuts for 2 weeks of unstructured time. So great. Jeff and Ariel, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for everyone for being here. And please do reach out, questions, comments, anything.